this is not the album that you hip somebody to when it comes to Miles Davis. This ain't the new quintet. This ain't Sketches of Spain. This ain't Kinda Blue. This ain't Milestones. This ain't any of that. Hell, it ain't even Bitches Brew. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to day number 29. That's right, one day left of the Black Music Month 30 series here on the Groove Line with your boy Chris Stevens. Hopefully, you all are doing well out there. It's Monday. We're going to make it a Miles Monday to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the birth of Mr. Miles Dewey Davis III. But we're going to talk about this album. We're going to talk about On the Corner, which was recorded over a few days at Columbia Records 52nd Street Studio in New York in June of 1972 and part of July 1972. It was released on October 11, 1972 on CBS Records. And before we get into the review of this album, let's be clear. This is not the album that you hip somebody to when it comes to Miles Davis. This ain't the new quintet. This ain't Sketches of Spain. This ain't Kinda Blue. This ain't Milestones. This ain't any of that. Hell, it ain't even Bitches Brew. So if you're expecting some of that good old, that Miles, that good Miles. I mean, well, I wouldn't say this is a bad Miles album. Don't get me wrong, but if you're expecting a certain kind of, something from this album, don't. If this is your first listen to Miles Davis, it shouldn't be your first listen to Miles Davis. Your first listen to Miles Davis should be the ones that I mentioned: Kinda Blue, Sketches of Spain, the New Quintet, that type of stuff. But yes, On the Corner was Miles. He wanted to reach the streets pretty much. That's why the album is titled On the Corner, because he wanted to talk to the young black kids in the streets that had sort of distanced themselves from jazz as we got into the 70s with Isaac Hayes, James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, and all of that good stuff. And even the emergence of Funkadelic at this particular point in time. I'm sure a lot of that had weighed heavy on Miles's mind. So he went and got everybody who you think was jazz royalty at that time, put them on his record. There's Chick Corea, there's Herbie Hancock, there's Jack DeJohnette, there's but there is a young 21-year-old bassist by the name of Michael Henderson who figures prominently on his record. James Ntume, of course, is playing percussion like the congas and stuff. And Miles told Stevie Wonder on no uncertain terms, "I'm taking your bleeping bassist." And that bleeping bassist was 21-year-old Michael Henderson. So Michael Henderson plays a prominent role on his record, keeping the groove down, and McLaughlin on the guitars. And it's 4 tracks long, but it's 54 minutes. And if again, don't expect anything really linear on this record. I mean, you could argue that there's some linear moments, but this is pretty much a jam session that Miles and the producer pieced together. And the opening track is literally pretty much most of the first disc. You got On the Corner for the first 7 minutes. You got New York Girl after that. You got one thing and doing another, and Vote for Miles. And that all totals up to about 20 minutes in length. And then, of course, you have Black Satin, which was released, strangely enough, as a single under the title of Molester. Now, why was it released as Molester? I don't know. I couldn't tell you any more than I can tell you, Pythagorean theorem. I hate math. I failed math miserably in high school and college. That's why it took me so long to graduate college. I digress. And the second side is 2 tracks as well, but again, they're jumbled together. There's One in One, and then there's Helen Butt and Mr. Freedom X. Now I don't know. I don't know if it's Helen Butt, Helen Butte. I don't know, but for some strange reason, Miles picked some very interesting titles for these specific tracks on his album. And again, there's a lot of electronic elements in there. There's a sitar. Miles is playing his trumpet through a wah wah pedal. So is Michael Henderson playing his bass. Like, this is everything that was starting to sort of brew, pardon the pun, in the early point of the 70s. You had electronic elements in music because Stevie was starting to use synthesizers at that point in time. A lot of other people were starting to do electric music, like Wendy Carlos and different folks like that switched on and all of that. And it just really, was starting to become a technological space race, as it were. And Miles was no different because Miles always wanted to be hip. He said it himself when his album came out. I ain't recording nothing for no white people. I'm recording for black people. I want black people to say I dig Miles Davis. And for a dude who was going on 50 at this particular point in time in his life, you would think that he would be secure enough that his musicianship would be good enough for a black audience. And I'm not saying, the last thing I'm doing is calling Miles Davis insecure. I'm just saying you would think that he would know that, Miles Davis is Miles Davis at this point in time. Nobody's really, you know, expecting anything different. But on the corner, on its release was really ripped apart by all sorts of critics, especially the infamous Stanley Crouch, who apparently hated Miles until the day Miles died. So, it was a lot going on at this time. I mean, again, you look at the first half of the 70s before disco really took things over, everybody was trying to figure out how to advance from modal jazz, from the Motown sound, even, the Chitlin Circuit stuff, that gut bucket soul like Stax and the Rhythm Soul, the Muscle Shoals rhythm section, all of those folks. Like it literally was one of the most explorational periods in music history, that first half of the 70s. You could probably argue that for the entirety of the 70s. But in that first half, you started getting people like, okay, so what's this ARP thing? What's this Moog thing? What the hell is a wah wah pedal? I mean, Hendrix had been using, different sorts of tricks and things, electronic things to make his guitar really bang prior to that. But Hendrix was gone by the end of 1970. So everybody else was like, all right, if Jimmy can't use the stuff, but he used it so damn well, we might as well try to figure out why he used it. So that's what you get when you get into a lot of these records of the first half of the 70s, because you're trying to get people to listen to your stuff at a time when, again, this is when freedom became the modus operandi for young people. They watched their loved ones die in Vietnam in the 60s. Some people watch their loved ones die in terms of civil rights, whether it's race, religion, sex, gender. Like these folks went through a lot at the end of the 60s. By the time they got to the 70s, they were like, man, we made it to the 70s. We don't give up anymore. We're going to do these drugs. We're going to each other. We're going to whoever we can, legally, of course, and all of that other stuff. So, I mean, the music pretty much had to sort of set the tone for the attitude that people had in the 70s. And people were tired of, I mean, I don't want to say people were tired of Motown, but definitely that assembly line formula that Barry Gordy had from his days working at Ford was played out by the time you get to 1972. People wanted to hear different sounds. That's why you get Herbie Hancock in his Mwandishi period. That's when you get, a rising funkadelic, talking about Maggot Brain and America Eats Its Young. You have James Brown sort of going into this whole, Afrocentric movement, but still very black, very masculine, very hardcore. I mean, but still, rubbery, funky, have a good time type of stuff. And Miles, he didn't want to be left out. He was like, man, bitches brew, people like that. I don't know why people didn't like the tribute to Jack Johnson. I thought that was cool, but we're gonna try something different with this on the corner. And I just think it was too different for what people had come to expect from Miles over the 20 years he had been recording. So people, I mean, again, that album on the corner was absolutely just ripped to shreds by any critic that you can imagine. One dude who wrote Miles' biography said it was an insult to the intelligence of his audience. And I'm like, damn, that's how you feel? I mean, okay, it's not what you would consider traditional jazz, but it's hardly the worst album anyone's ever heard, to be quite honest with you. I mean, there are quite a few albums that some of our favorites have put out that kind of like, ugh. Oh, by the way, I did not know that kids doing this meant it was scuba. I thought they were saying that their ops stink, but you know. I'm 44. I'm out the game as far as being hip goes. But yeah, I think Miles and On the Corner got a bad rap at the time, but of course it was like my man on Goody Mob said, "Listen to me now, believe me later on." And people came back and listened to On the Corner. It's like, oh, I get where he's going with this. Just took people time to get it, and now it's one of the more memorable Miles Davis releases, if for nothing else, his willingness to explore. So again, this is not an album you start a Miles Davis newbie off with. I remember when I had Marcus Chapman on the show. He said you always introduce somebody to an artist with the best that that artist has. You don't introduce Miles Davis to somebody with this album. You don't. You introduce him with Kind of Blue, the new Sextet, um, Sketches in Spain. Hell, even Miles Eye in the Sky. If you want to start with the jazz fusion start of Miles's era, that's fine. I mean, like I said, and Bitches Brew is just jazz rock before anybody called it jazz rock. But yeah, those are. I mean, you can start them off with albums prior to On the Corner, but don't start nobody off who's never listened to Miles Davis with On the Corner because they're gonna be like, huh? You gotta let it build. You gotta let the beat build. Word to Lil Wayne. So if you listen to On the Corner, let's talk about it. What are your memories of the album? If you have not heard it, oh yeah, listen to some other Miles first, and then go listen to On the Corner, and then come back and tell us what you think. And that's going to do it for day number 29 of the Black Music Month 30 series here on the Groove Line with your boy Chris Stevens. Greatly appreciate y'all as always. Contact information will be in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe, tap that notification bell to be notified of all new videos that drop on this channel. And don't forget to like and comment on the videos because as you know by now, your boy talks back in the comments. 29 days down, one fun live stream as well, and one day left. Let's see what we got. So until the next time we ride, which will be tomorrow and Tuesday, may you find the groove, or may the groove find you.